time is 7:02 p.m. Adequate notice of the meeting has been posted for all, filed with the Borough Clerk and mailed to the Asbury Park Press. Number 2, River Times. Roll call, please.
Mayor Mena.
Here.
Thomas Welsh.
Present.
Councilman Ballard. Dan Mancuso.
Here.
Guy Narada. Lou Demento. Barbara Boas. Here. Art Murphy. Juanita Lewis. Here. Dave Cassidy.
Here.
Fred Stone.
Here.
Eric Harry.
Here. First order of business is approval of the minutes of October 7th. Do we have a motion for approval of the minutes? A second?
Second.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Public hearings, 176 Riverside LLC, Block 3, lots 201, 401, 6, and 901. This is for preliminary and final site plan approval. Welcome back, everyone. Mr. Warren?
Good evening, Chad Warrington for the applicant, 176 Riverside Avenue, or 176 Riverside LLC. Better?
Thank you.
Much better.
Okay. Okay. Chad Warrington of Archer and Griner on behalf of the applicant, 176 Riverside LLC. I appreciate the board and the public coming out tonight with the weather. The applicant greatly appreciates it. We know this has been a long time coming to get to this stage. Just as a refresher for the board and the public where we were at the last hearing, the applicant had finished its case in chief. The public had provided their comments. The objector had presented their case. The board had started deliberations. During those deliberations, a few issues arose. One of the issues was the contribution to the traffic light. The applicant had agreed at the end of the last hearing to pay 80% of the traffic light if it gets approved. The other issue that had been raised was the location of the outdoor plaza. The applicant has heard the board and the public's comments and concerns and has revised the plan to show a new location for the public plaza. With that, I've got Mr. Lustberg here. We had submitted in the plan back on October the 24th. We received a review letter from T&M indicating that they had no issues with the revised location. But I've got Mr. Lustberg, who had been previously sworn in and testified, to testify and explain the revised plan.
Let the record show that Councilman Ballard is in attendance.
Mr. Lustberg, prior to this hearing, you have had an opportunity to review the plan, revise the plan showing the outdoor gathering area, correct?
Yes, I did.
Excuse me, one second, Mr. Lustberg, you were under oath, previously sworn in under oath.
Yes, understood.
Okay. What can you, so that was submitted into the board back on October the 24th. What you have here is a colorized version of that plan?
Yes.
I'd like to have that marked as A, I think we're up to A13, A14. And can you mark for the record what that is? Again, it's a colorized version of the street plan that had been updated or revised?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the date on that?
12 to 2019, December 2nd.
And again, this represents the colorized version of the plan.
That's correct.
Okay, can you describe for the board, you had heard their comments, the changes you made?
Yes. Thank you for your time tonight. I'll just walk you through the revised plaza location. So the plaza in the previous plan was located here at the corner of Riverside and Bodman. We've taken that plaza and the same program, same elements, and relocated it just around the corner on the other side of the same lobby space. So there was a door out. There's a door out of this lobby on both sides. So now it's on this side of the lobby. In the space where the plaza formerly was, we've expanded the rain garden in that area. So the rain garden is about twice the size that it was, which is very nice. Nice addition to the green infrastructure. And the plaza itself, 1,000 square feet, is located right in this area here. Again, adjacent to the lobby at street level. The plaza includes landscape, some paved areas, and some seating.
And the size of the plaza complies with the redevelopment plan, correct?
Yes, it does. The plaza space is 1,000 square feet.
And the design with the seating?
And the program and everything like that complies.
And it's substantially similar to the same type of seating that you had in the previous?
Yes, it is.
Describe the seating in detail, please.
So there's a couple of different types of seating. There's a wood bench which is similar to the wood, which is the same as the wood bench that was in the prior plan, which is a 6-foot-long wooden bench. There is movable seating in this area, which is sort of cafe-style seating, small table with 2 chairs, 3 of those. And then there is also the pebble sculptural piece that was, presented previously that people can sit on as well.
Anyone on the board have any questions for the applicant regarding the plan?
Cafe style, you mentioned that it's cafe style, is that like table chairs?
Yeah, it's a small,
Or are
it's a
they-
small table with chairs.
Will they be, movable and movable within the plaza? I mean,
Yes, they're movable.
So are they gonna put legs and walk too?
No, they typically don't.
But are they not, they're not going to be any kind of hazard that you could move into the sidewalk or into the street?
No, this type of seating is actually the some of the most popular kind of seating now in any public plazas, urban spaces, because it gives people the flexibility to sit in groups or how they would like to sit. So,
Okay. Thank you.
That's the only change? In the whole plan, that's the only
You gotta use the
change?
mic, speak it for the mic.
That's the only change?
Yes, that's the change that the board had requested, and we've made that change.
Anyone else from the board? Anyone from the public have any questions for the applicant regarding the changed plan? Mr. Gazarovski,
I
question?
don't have any questions of this witness, but my understanding was when we left the last time, the board and or Mr. Lexstein was going to make inquiry of the state with regard to this issue of the traffic signalization.
Mr. Gazarovski, can you speak up?
My understanding was that this interim period of time, the respective parties were to make inquiry with regard to the issue of the traffic signalization at the intersection of Wyman Place and 35. Is that not so?
That was not
I
my,
don't recall that. Do you, Mike?
Okay.
It would've been nice.
So right now, we have absolutely no knowledge with regard to what's gonna happen.
That's unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
the board has the knowledge that the applicant has agreed to make the application,
Yes.
coordinate, and pay 80% of the light if approved.
Yes.
The application, if this is approved, has to come from the municipality.
Has to come from where?
The municipality,
Right.
yeah.
Well, do we have any time frame with regard to that? So when it will be done, if it will be done?
If the board approves it, it is in the municipality's best interest and desire that, as soon as the resolution is approved, as soon as the 45-day period of appeal is exhausted, it would be the municipality's desire, no matter what happens at this intersection, to move ahead with a resolution requesting the DOT, and at that time, the applicant would have to post the appropriate fees as well as sign the developer's agreement with the municipality. That's the way it's normally done.
Has the municipality determined that it in fact wants to have signalization at that intersection?
There has been no vote of the governing body. However, I can assure you, Mr. Gazarovski, that any member of the governing body, and I have a councilman here, would say that even if this is not approved, we would like a light, a signalized intersection at that. So we've been trying to get it for 10 years with no success. And the reason why no success is because DOT said that two factors. They didn't see the need for it at that time, and also presumably cost factors.
Is that correct in assuming then that the governing body took this position prior to even the redevelopment plan being passed?
What position?
That signalization was necessary there?
The governing body is
We're getting a little-
sensitive to the needs of people people, although no resolution has been passed.
And we're getting a little far afield as to,
I was just answering a logical question.
I understand.
And Mr. Gazarovski had logical questions on that. I think he's better to answer.
Okay, and the applicant has agreed in part of the redevelopment plan and as part of this application, if this application is approved, they'll move forward with the coordinating with the borough to make the application for the traffic light.
May I make one last comment? I know the last time.
And
we
ask,
were
the
here-
public comment has been closed.
Close to the mic,
I'm sorry.
please.
Let me borrow that. I know the last time we were here, there was quite a bit of comment from the public, and I think that I also made comment at that last hearing. And I don't recall whether or not it had been determined that those were my closing remarks or just comments at that time. If possible, I would like to make closing argument with regard to the issue which is before the board right now. I'll take no more than 5 minutes.
We went through closing arguments.
We don't have notes that Mr. Gazarovski closed.
I'm sorry?
We don't have any notes that Mr. Gazarovski did his closing
Because we had
arguments.
some
He did ask
discussions.
questions.
But at the end of his case, he went first and I went second. So if he's gonna be able to make further comment, I'd like to be able to
Yeah, I don't
respond.
have a problem with that.
That's fair. And we'll limit it, if you limit it to 5 minutes,
That's fine.
that's
That's
fine.
fine. Thank you. I went first last time. You want to go first this time?
No, see, he did go first last time, so I don't know why we're doing it again, but.
You should
Okay.
gain the seniority.
I will try to restrict my comments. What I did before coming here is that I reread the letter which I sent to Mr. Lechstein on October the 4th of 2019. And in reviewing it, I found it to be a comprehensive letter. And my recollection may be that Mr. Lechstein actually read that letter into the record. Is that not so, Mr. Lechstein?
You know, it's through this right out, I gotta go find that letter.
Okay.
It's just like file.
So if nothing else.
All right, this was the briefing that I had requested.
Right. So you don't need to read it again, but I want to just have it marked as an exhibit which I've submitted to the board.
It's part of it.
And I think we got-
File.
And Mr. Warnke did one as well. Basically, I'm fully aware of the redevelopment plan, and I know when it was passed. It was passed in October of 2019. What is important is that the redevelopment plan is basically an ordinance which was passed by the governing body. It's an overlay zone, but it has the same effect and authenticity of any ordinance which would be passed in this municipality. It's a reflective of a legislative act of the governing body. And I think I pointed out during the course of this hearing, not only is the property which is owned by the applicant in the redevelopment zone, but in addition to that, my client's property, which I believe is known as lot 7.01, is owned by my client, who also owns the Colony House, which is located across the street from Bodmin Avenue. So the lot in question, 7.01, which is a parking lot, is in fact a part of the redevelopment zone. And I think one thing which is very important with regard to that is the manner in which the redevelopment ordinance was passed. Clearly, as I pointed out earlier, I believe it's on item 4 on page 9, it says vehicular access shall be provided from Bodmin Place. A maximum of 2 driveways shall be permitted along the roadway. Vehicle entrances to internal garages shall not front upon Riverview Avenue or State Highway 35.
I don't mean to be rude, but we've gone through this numerous times already.
We have done this.
Well, let's assume that. You've given me 5 minutes for my closing comments. Why can't I
know,
include?
but what you're doing though is doing exactly, you've done this before, almost word for word, you're commenting and reading this like you did once before. I mean, it's not a matter of 5 minutes, it's a matter that it's so redundant.
Well, if you're saying to me I can't do that, I don't
I'm not
agree with
saying
that.
We're saying take 5 minutes and sum up.
Well, you've taken 2 already, so you've got 3 left, so.
Fine.
Get to it.
Let him finish.
Right. So what my point is that the ordinance is an ordinance. The governing body, when they passed the redevelopment plan, was clearly aware of the fact that not all of the property within the redevelopment zone was owned by the applicant. They were aware of the fact that a portion of that property was owned by my client, and my client had a parking lot on that garage, on that property. So when they restricted it to 2 driveways, that meant that there was only 1 remaining driveway left for the developer of this project to utilize. Now, that is a significant diversion from the redevelopment plan. And what's important about that is the number of driveways to a way also controls some of the vehicular traffic coming onto that property. So my point is, we know that the intersection in question is a dangerous intersection. The development of the project itself might be somewhat restricted if they only had 1 driveway rather than 2 driveways. Now, they can go back to the governing body and say, look, we're looking for an amendment to the redevelopment plan because we think you made a mistake when you did it this way. I don't believe this board has the jurisdiction to change the redevelopment ordinance. It's as plain and simple as that. Even more interestingly, when you look at the permitted uses in the redevelopment zone, it's on page 6. It says permitted per principal uses. There's no permitted principal use which lists something as a parking lot. It's just simply not there. Number 4 says any other use which is substantially similar to the permitted principal uses listed herein, subject to the approval of the planning board. Now, if this parking lot were in fact being utilized in conjunction with the apartment or the multifamily use, then it would be an accessory to that use, but it's not. It's a wholly independent use, and it's really not listed as a permitted use under the redevelopment plan, so they would need relief from that. If you even go on to the following pages, going to the permitted conditional uses, it says public parking facilities. This is not a public parking facility. This is a parking lot specifically only entitled to be used by my client. Even we get to accessory uses. This is not an accessory use to the complex in question. So the applicant comes in, he wants to build this project, he wants to comply with the zoning ordinances, but in reality he's not, because there are 2 uses on this property, not 1. 1 being the proposed complex which is being proposed, 2 being the parking lot, which is an accessory use to the Colony House across the street. So we have no traffic counts with regard to the Colony House. We have no application to have this accessory use to the Colony House in the application itself. So one of my arguments would be, number 1, this board doesn't have the jurisdiction to grant a waiver or some type of a C variance with regard to an additional driveway. It's got to go back to the governing body for them to do that. That was an argument which I made earlier on. Obviously, the board can either accept or reject. Secondly, the use of the parking lot is either a principal use standing by itself, which it's not. It's really an accessory use to the Colony House across the street. That was never part of your considerations. So I think that takes me pretty much to the edge of my 5 minutes. I don't want to be repetitious, but I would urge you that with regard to how this is laid out, this is how the governing body controlled the traffic coming onto the street. They limited the number of driveways, and we're all familiar, I know the attorneys are, with the Dunkin' Donuts case, which we talk about a situation similar to this, but what the Dunkin' Donut case did say, though, a planning board cannot restrict traffic, but a governing body can. In this particular case, the governing body restricted or limited the number of traffic that would be coming down Bodmin Avenue by placing a restriction on the number of driveways. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lexstein. I did double check the minutes, and after you presented that at the last meeting, Mr. Lexstein did advise the board that we could hear this case and have jurisdiction for it. So that, we did do this last time. I appreciate that you wanted to go over it again. Mr. Warnkin, I've got to give you your 5 minutes.
And I'll try to be brief with that.
Thank you.
Try
I
to.
think you need 5 minutes.
No, I'm trying to make sense of what he was saying there, but the first thing I do want to point out is, as the chairman has indicated, this was addressed at the last hearing. You board made a finding that they had jurisdiction, they can move forward that way. I'm not going to belabor that point. With respect to the uses of the property in this application, I think Mr. Gazarovski is confused in that his parking lot is not part of our application. The application and this is an overlay zone. This redevelopment plan is an overlay zone. The applicant for development, the person who's making the application for development, which involves the property that's the subject of the application, which is what we applied for, has the right to choose whether or not the redevelopment overlay standards apply. And if not, the underlying standards remain in place. We haven't made an application on his property. The underlying zoning remains in place. To the extent as whether it's permitted or not permitted under the underlying zoning, it's a pre-existing use, so he's allowed to do something on that. If he wants to move forward, he doesn't have to move forward with the redevelopment plan. He can move forward with the underlying zoning. So all of that information is just irrelevant to what's in front of the board now. Again, not to belabor the point, we have gone through, presented our proofs on this case. This is a project that is in conformance with the redevelopment plan for the application. It is in conformance and is providing a large percentage of the borough's affordable housing requirements. It's providing 32 units, which are incorporated in part of your affordable housing plan, and I believe your settlement with Fair Share. This is a project the applicant has worked for with the borough to come up. We've made concessions. We've agreed to pay 80% of the light. We're going to make the application as part of our redevelopment agreement with the borough, and I believe we've provided enough proof and asked the board to move forward.
Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, also at the last meeting, we did speak about there were some residents that had some concerns regarding the door construction. I believe Mr. Skeeper had a list of points that we did discuss, and I don't know, Mr. Lepstein, if he was able to get those, but one of the things that concerned me was during construction, the frequency of large vehicles, whether they be delivery or equipment, making a left coming north, coming from the north onto Bob, which it would be a problem. And I think Mr. Schuber, I believe that's how I understood it, and I agree. And we were supposed to talk a little bit about that as far as restricting those vehicles and making them come around to enter it from the south. Because otherwise, with the frequency, it's going to be a problem. It's not a delivery truck at Oyster Point. It could be a year, 2 years of constant truck. And people will not be able to get out of there if somebody's hung up with a trailer. And that was one of the points. The other point was to monitor that situation, because you can't have a patrol person or anything like that there, but to, at the very least, to monitor the situation, however we do it, to make sure that the developer knows that we're going to enforce that, should that be an issue here at the planning board and condition.
I appreciate those comments, and you're correct. Those are conditions that if we move forward, we have to address, and we're probably best address to our engineer, who will then coordinate with the chief of police. But the way I see that is that there would have to be some sort of visual observation that is tied in with traffic safety, so that they could monitor it, number one, which the applicant would have to put on site. Number two, we also talked about if we move forward with respect to a construction entrance and construction staging. If we go forward, this the worst thing that could happen is have large construction vehicles parked on lot in place. So therefore, with our engineer, I would strongly suggest that a construction stabilization an area where construction vehicles would have to be parked and stabilized would be at the bottom of the site, closer to the Oyster Point and the postal building, and that no construction vehicles would be on the street, because to have those large construction vehicles would probably be a problem. They'd have to be stabilized and also restricted the bottom of the area
should put a condition as you move forward and this is approved, set forth that certain regulations should be worked up with the help of the engineer. It'll be put into a developer's agreement, but the town, usually construction is controlled through the developers.
It would be.
I know there is one already, I believe there is.
Well, there would have to be a construction agreement, developer's agreement, construction, that would be probably instead of the engineer, the traffic safety officer, which would be, Sergeant Brody.
So we should make that as a condition that be developed.
I think that it's necessary, because you have to think ahead.
If I may, what the applicant be willing to do is, if the board is so inclined to approve it as a condition of the approval, that we would coordinate with the borough's engineer and emergency management or police department to come up with an acceptable construction staging plan.
But I agree with Tom that any construction vehicles would have to make the right instead of the left at bottom.
And again, that would be part of what we would work with the engineer to come up with.
And it's just important, obviously, that you're communicating that well in advance to any of those large trucks making deliveries that they need to approach.
Yeah, well, typically those type of things happen, there's a pre-construction meeting and everybody's laid out, it's very clear as to what everybody's supposed to do.
Okay. Anyone else on the board have any questions?
Well, I think we all have a lot of questions. Questions, how do we want to address it? I think Tom's question was appropriately addressed, and we all have the same concerns on that. Based on the changes in the plans, I would just have a couple of questions in terms of, I think this is a better plan with the public space on Bodmin Place, therefore you're also inviting your neighbors to use it instead of just yourselves. So I think that's a safer way. But my question would be, have you reviewed, Ed, you reviewed this new plan?
Yes.
What, I know that the testimony has been that they're gonna have some plans, some other things on the Riverside Avenue part of that. It's not gonna be where people are congregating, but what is going to be there that can assure us that that's not gonna be like wide open for vehicles to come in? Is it shrubbery?
When you say wide open for vehicles, you mean every vehicle is leaving the roadway?
Yeah.
Heading towards the building? There is no proposal to stop that, there is none today.
You have to speak into the microphone.
We can't hear back here because of the heating system. We can't hear anything at all. I'm sorry for the
Why don't you move up
interruption.
closer?
Well, nobody back here.
Oh, okay. So we all have to speak up louder, right?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Go ahead. Speak up.
I don't know how much you heard, I'll repeat. So the question at hand was what changes occurred at the intersection, which was previously the public gathering space. This board had asked the applicant to consider relocating that away from the busy corner intersection for safety concerns of errant vehicles potentially coming around the curve on Riverside and leaving the roadway and going into that area. I believe there was testimony that there were previous history with vehicles potentially leaving that roadway there. It's on a curve, so can it happen? Yes. There is no guide rail, there is no other means of protection proposed, nor would I think DOT would really want it at that location. The building is far enough away. In terms of guide rail, I think there was testimony previously regarding the clear zone. Clear zone defines the objects that you're trying to protect beyond a certain distance from the roadway. Generally speaking, you don't just randomly put in guide rail for any purpose. It's got to have a design impact in what you're trying to protect. So one of the main problems with guide rail is also a potential impediment that could kill someone. So the thought that guide rail you can just place randomly, you can't. It's got to be in accordance with AASHTO design guidelines. I believe we did hear previously from the applicant's engineers regarding that. So the building, I believe the testimony is far enough away, but it's outside the clear zone that would require guide rail for this particular instance. But beside that, there's some light shrubbery, a few trees, I believe. Most of the trees now is the modification to the plan. So nothing in there, in my opinion, would be counter to anything that DOT would be opposed to. And I think getting everything else, all of the public gathering facilities away from that corner is a net positive
further away from the Riverside Avenue than the existing DNA building?
I believe it is.
Yes.
Yes.
And what about the sidewalks on Bodmin? Do they have to be replaced as a result of this?
I believe the applicant is proposing to replace pretty much all the sidewalks.
Yes.
Along Riverside as well.
Yes.
Will any foundation walls and or sanitary, any foundation walls or any other areas go any further into the borough easement that presently exists?
To my knowledge, that they will not.
That is correct.
And you signed off on the trash room area inside the building for the collection of trash?
I have acknowledged that they proposed it. Generally speaking, the details of that would go through the construction approval process. That would fall under the building codes and those elements. So I don't really have to sign off on that per se, other than that they are adequately addressing the details of which the construction official will ultimately sign off on, the size and the layout and things of that nature.
What about the landscaping on the area on top of the roof? Is that to your satisfaction, is it appropriate for
Yes, I believe
rooftop
so.
gardens?
I believe so.
What about the drainage from that? Are you satisfied the drainage will be correctly addressed?
For the site?
Yes.
Yes. I think we will need a little more detailing ultimately, which I would imagine would be a resolution compliance type of event for the dog music area that was discussed at length. There was testimony, there's a couple different products available. I think that needs to be clearly defined and the ultimate discharge of any rainwater / wastewater from the use of the dog area would be turned on.
Any enhancements in lighting on Boston Place that you would recommend?
I don't think we asked for any additional light, other than what was on the plan.
Correct. We actually, at one spot, I think we had a design waiver for additional, that we had
There was a
slightly over.
yeah,
Slightly
slight
over.
overage, but it was lighting up the road, slightly more, normally allowed in the property.
Bo has raised a concern about the park or playground for the children. That was proposed, no changes to what's been proposed.
No, we believe that this is appropriate for the demographics that we sought for this building. There are only 6 3-bedroom units in the entire building, and they're the affordable units.
Last call for questions of the applicant from the board.
Yeah, I'm gonna pile on here. Does that mean that the
You gotta pull the mic closer, Barbara.
I have to get taller? I really do have some concern. If you're gonna,
Well, there is gonna be a pool for the children, there's a club room inside that the children can use, so there is amenities for the children to use, who will be there. That's not a change, but that's
Nobody
been
has
on the
talked
plan.
about the amenities yet.
yeah,
Okay.
right.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the amenities?
I haven't, but there's gonna be an indoor pool or an outdoor, or just an outdoor?
It's an outdoor pool.
An outdoor pool, okay, so that's, fine for the summer, but that's only 4 months, 3 months of the year. There still has to be some place for kids, I mean, you have 1,000 square feet, you can't run around very much, 1,000 square feet of parkland. Where do you expect them to play in the street? I mean, I'm
No,
being sarcastic a little bit, but.
No, I understand, and there's the club room.
There is a real concern.
There's a club room for the children inside. In many settings like this, they don't necessarily have green space areas whereby, like a park or a tot lot. We do have the pool that they can use in the summer in the warm weather. They have the indoor club room that they're gonna be able to use in the bad weather.
What is this, it's just like a the gymnasium, like, you know, and is it going to be exclusively for the children, or?
I don't believe it's exclusively for the children, but it's no different than any other apartment building, or many other apartment buildings in both the town and in the surrounding areas. It's typical for this type of apartment building to have these type of amenities.
Anything else, Ken?
It was going to be, obviously, if this is approved, the affordable housing element of the plan is going to be assigned to the borough's coordinator for affordable housing, is that correct?
Yes,
Pursuant to our agreement with Fair Share Housing.
correct. We would comply with the ordinances and the redevelopment
Right.
agreement.
So the screening process would be undertaken by the borough's coordinator, which is the Red Bank Affordable Housing Corporation.
That's my understanding.
And they would make the selection of qualified applicants who would be able to benefit from the program. Your organization would divest itself of that, which would be the Affordable Housing Corporation.
I believe we coordinate with the affordable housing.
Yes, you would have to, of course, yes.
Mr. Warnken, how long do you think it would take your client to finish this building from groundbreaking?
Approximately 2 years.
If the board were to grant approval, what is your tentative, I guess, timeframe for demolition of the existing building, or does there have to be any further studies before demolition?
As to demolition, I believe what we would do is we'd have to finalize the other approvals in place before they demolish the building. We'll move forward with CAFRA and the other outside agency approvals. Once they're done, I believe they want to move forward as soon as they can, but I don't believe they're gonna, I don't believe there's plans to take down the building until the outside agency approvals are in place.
Are you suggesting the outside approvals would be the installation of a traffic light also?
No, I'm not. But we do, the DOT does not have jurisdiction over this project. We've agreed that we'll coordinate to make an application in good faith and if approved to pay 80% of the light, but that is not an outside agency approval and that.
Right. So the outside approvals would be CAFRA and,
Any other,
can you think of any others?
county, which we got, soil erosion.
Right.
We may have to go for water and sewer. There were some certain hookups. I just have to check to see. At least we'll have to get those in place as well.
And can we have guarantees from your organization that, when the building is torn down, that there will be appropriate, fencing around it, so it's not an eyesore, and that as long as they own the building and it's not torn down, that they're going to maintain it? So it looks, I mean, it does.
Of course.
I haven't seen it,
Of course, they're.
I wanted to continue because we've had problems in that area.
Of course, they will continue to maintain the property. And I just been told they have maintenance coming in once a week.
Well, I mean, that's obvious.
And they're gonna
I just
continue.
I wanted to continue.
Yes, we will
You have
continue.
seen that breakdown happen.
Yes, we will continue, and when the building comes down, all appropriate measures to minimize the impact to the surrounding properties will take place as well.
Thank you.
Anyone from the board like to make a motion regarding this application?
May I just briefly address the council?
We closed comment, public comment to the application.
I
last
realize
meeting.
that went quickly.
I can't hear you.
That went quickly. I was waiting for somebody else to speak. Very briefly. I'm not gonna go on.
We closed it at the last meeting. We can't open it again. If you have a specific comment, and I did fail to mention this, I offered questions. If someone has a specific comment about the changes to the landscape plan, you're welcome to make that. But please let me assure you, the minute you step off of commenting from that plan, I'm gonna ask you to stop. So please direct your comments specifically to the changes in the landscape plan. I failed to do that, so if you'd like to comment on the plan as presented tonight, you're welcome to come up and do that. I'm sorry that I didn't do that earlier.
And just to clarify, it's not necessarily the landscape plan, but the public plaza.
Correct, the changes in the landscape plan as it relates to the public plaza move. Just tell us your name again, please.
Hi, Maureen Mel, 138 Bodman.
Maureen, were you previously sworn?
Yes, I was.
Okay, you're still under oath.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
The question I have is, this is the first time I'm seeing this, so I guess it's the first time it was brought to the meeting, the new layout.
The plan was submitted on October the 24th.
I'm sorry, with the new layout of,
Yes, the new layout. This is a colorized version of that plan, but the plan was submitted on October the 24th. T&M issued a review letter on the revised plan.
We never saw the.
yeah, this is the first, I think some of us are seeing that it's now on Bodman and not on the other.
It was submitted and the board's had it since October the 24th.
But the meetings have been canceled.
Yeah, but any revisions to plans are generally available, as always, in the planning office. They're not distributed prior to meetings.
My only question is, now that it's on Bodman, how are people gonna turn around? And I ask that because we have a real issue at 138. We have a very small parking lot that people use as a U-turn.
This
And this
doesn't
is going to
encroach
sit.
into the turning radius areas. This is,
See, this doesn't change anything about the layout of the traffic. This is just moving that seating area to another location, but it didn't change any traffic or vehicle movements at all.
Okay, so they'll be able to do a U-turn on the street.
Same as
They'll have the same amount of width.
the plan was originally submitted, yes. You're
represented by
Mr.
counsel?
Lipstein's client? I mean, Mr.
Gazarovski.
Gazarovski's client?
Yes, I am.
Could you please direct your question to him so he can ask it for you, because you're represented by counsel?
Okay.
and Mr. Gazarovski has had his chance.
What's the question?
I can't record it.
Into the microphone.
This really has to do with the amendment to the plans, but my recollection was pointed out by my client, that I believe the applicant was also going to come back with the elevations of the buildings that were to be constructed along Bodman Place.
And we did that a few meetings ago.
They brought back a giant color rendering looking down.
That's not correct, it was never presented.
Yes, it was.
Sir, it was presented right here in this room.
Absolutely not. We were told it was represented. It was told it was presented, the corner
Oh,
was
if it
presented.
was presented, let's see it.
It's never presented.
They'll show it to you, it was presented right here.
That's it.
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
not it.
That's it.
That's the corner. We want an elevation here to see the building from Colony House and Mara Vista. We want an elevation right here. When we talked about it specifically, we want an elevation.
I'm not sure why we're going through this. This has been closed already.
We did it, we've done this, this is exactly what we asked for and they brought it, and this was meetings ago, we discussed it. If there was a problem with this elevation as presented at the meeting, it should have been brought up before, we're
I
done.
brought it up, other people brought it up. There's people from Mara Vista
The public-
specifically stated they wanted to see the elevation of what it looked like.
And that's what was submitted,
And
and
this is the corner, this has nothing to do with it. What we're looking at is here, you can't even see it. How does this reflect the view from Bodman Place, from across the street from the Mara Vista and the Colony House?
the Colony House is on the corner.
No, it isn't, Colony House is back there. Not here.
In any event, I mean, it is what it is now.
Well, let's switch this.
If we can, the public portion has been closed, but for the
We
these
asked for it
changes.
at every meeting, every single meeting it was asked for. I didn't ask for it myself. People from the Mara Vista asked for it repeatedly.
That was presented.
That we said right away, that's not what we're looking for.
This has been everything but for the public.
True.
Is that, I don't see this marked as an exhibit. Was it marked as an exhibit, Mr. Markle?
I believe that was, I
I'm
know it
sorry,
was.
I do see it here, A13.
It's the 813.
So the question being posed, and I think what was requested,
And why are we
Mr.
still debating
Gazarovski,
this?
We're done. We're done with this part.
look at my objection. Look, my objection to the fact that the exhibit that was produced and marked is not reflective of what was requested by both the public as well as by the board. It does not show the elevations looking from, I guess would be the easterly side of Bodmin Place, looking in a westerly direction. To say that the A13 does it is just incorrect.
Your objection is noted.
Okay, you had asked for a motion.
Is there a motion on the application?
I just,
Do we have a second?
forgive me.
No, we're
Public
not.
portion.
Go
I
ahead.
have my hand up because I was too late. I wasn't asked if you could,
Is this with respect
Yes,
Is
to?
this
regarding the
specifically,
plan.
is
Yes,
this specifically about the relocation of the seating area?
it's regarding the landscape plan that you said.
No, it's the relocation of the seating area.
When I said landscape plan, I meant the plan that was submitted moving the seating area, which is the only reason we're having a discussion at this meeting. Specifically to the seating area being moved down Bodmin Place. Is that what your comment or question is about?
Actually, it regarded the Passion Plea, which I was involved with, the tree. I didn't hear that mentioned in this particular.
We're done with the tree. We talked about.
The tree is gone, that's why I was.
2 meetings ago. Yeah.
May I just ask Mr. Walsh, if this project goes through, is there a way, the northern aspect of this project, is there a way for emergency vehicles only
We're getting far afield again.
to access 35?
No, it's not for here.
The public's had the opportunity, we've had our traffic engineer.
We're done with that. If you can direct that question to the construction official when the final plans are submitted and going through construction.
If it passes.
I'm just gonna say one more thing to the council. This redevelopment plan was passed back in December of 18. As a long-term,
Dr. Costa,
You're out of order.
I am out of order, but as a long-term resident of this town, this borough, I'd never heard about the redevelopment zone. Apparently it was done properly in the paper. I didn't have an idea about this. I would have contributed some ideas and thoughts at that time. I feel forgotten and cheated, as the residents, many others do here. It's unfortunate. I hope the council considers that in your deliberations. Thank you.
we have a motion, do we have a second approving the application? I'll second the application.
Mayor Bennett.
I think there has to be some discussion.
One second, before we vote. As you know, this means.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, speak it up.
We can't hear you back
Can't
here.
hear. This meets all of the requirements. This was a full compliant
Still can't hear you.
application. The only condition that I have, believe it or not, is we're extending the maintenance guarantee of the plantings for 3 years. We're going to have language concerning the applicant's cooperation to try to get that traffic light. Not sure exactly how it's going to.
Mr. Mancuso, could you please direct him to speak into the microphone? He can't hear
You
us.
can't hear me?
Real close.
Not at all.
They're having trouble with heaters.
I don't, all right. Okay, I'll project. Again, there will be an extension of the guarantee from 2 to 3 years. There will be language concerning the applicant's cooperation, including the 80% payment, should the traffic light be approved. And I don't have the exact language. And we're also gonna have language in the, directing that there'll be some in the construction and developers agreement concerning the phasing, how trucks will get there, where entrances will be, and that kind of, those kinds of issues. I don't have any other conditions. You work, okay, you want to add?
There were a lot more questions. My mic's not working, but there was a school bus accommodation whereby we would allow the turnaround on the property utilized by all residents of Bodmin as a proper school bus stop turnaround. Trash time will only happen after certain hours.
That was agreed to.
Correct.
And that any drainage
You
system.
gotta get closer to.
Got it. Any drainage system for the dog runs was agreed to go into the sanitary system, and they would work with the borough, and that would specifically go into the sanitary system, not the drainage retention system.
Ed, did we clarify the pet drainage?
Just for the clarification on that, like, for the dog run, it was, my notes were, it was the sanitary system, or as directed if the borough
Yes,
decided.
that's that the engineer directed otherwise. I remember that specifically.
That's fair.
I mean, if the dogs went to the bathroom on the grass, on a bottom place, you know, it would go where it goes anywhere.
We'll just work, however the borough wants to handle it, we'll handle it.
Anyone else have any conditions or comments before we vote?
I think that all of the comments contained in the Borough Engineer's letter of July 5th, 2019, that have not been addressed should be included in those standard conditions, as amended by Mr. Henry. Obviously, it's going to be subject to a redevelopers agreement, and the appropriate escrows are going to have to be submitted. It's going to be subject to a water availability study and certification. That's standard. And the applicant obviously was going to have to pay any and all escrows with respect to saying that. Also on the administration of the affordable housing, that will be relegated to the borough's administrative agency, which is the Red Bank Affordable Housing Corporation.
And it's the coordination.
Whatever's included in Mr. Herman's letter that has not been addressed will have to be undertaken. But I'm much concerned that if in fact the board were to vote, then I think a condition with respect to an application, or rather the demolition would have to be within the time frame that has been specified by the applicant and by the borough, which would start the total after a certain period of time after the approvals are issued by supervising agencies. And the appropriate ordinance with respect to fencing is going to have to be in place. And there would have to be reference in the agreement to the traffic signalization, which will have to be a joint effort with the application either by the borough, cost would be 80% by the applicant, and whatever changes to that intersection.
If I may, just for clarification, with respect to demolition and the outside agency approvals, the perfection of all the outside agency approvals. And the perfection of this
outside
approval.
agency approvals, that would make sense. And obviously, if the matter is tied in litigation, you may not, that would hold that element, if there's litigation.
And the perfection of this approval as well.
Precisely.
One final clarification, if the board is so inclined, it would be for the various, there were slight design waivers we requested to put on the record for as well. We had put the request for design waivers, I just wanted to make clear that those were included as part of the motion.
You have that one? Yeah. We have a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Thomas Welsh.
Yes.
Councilman Ballard.
Yes.
Dan Mancuso.
Yes.
Lou Demento.
No.
Barbara Boas.
Yes, with reservations.
Juanita Lewis.
I'm gonna abstain.
Abstain.
Cassidy.
She's abstaining.
Go Barbara, yes, with reservations.
Craig Still.
Yes, also reservations.
I think that, if I may, find on something. I've often said that I believe in affordable housing. And this is the largest, single most, I think, positive improvement by by the borough in terms of providing affordable housing for those of our residents who cannot afford and are not linear to live on the river, to give them access to the river. And those who cannot pay rent, $1,500 and $1,200 a month, to be given the opportunity to live, work, and play on the river. This is what we've done for them. It's given the people a greater chance to enjoy a lot of the amenities who somehow have still by them. People complain about traffic. I experience it every day. That's why for 10 years we have been trying to get a light there. Although it's never been said exclusively to the cost factors and element, and if we can get someone to contribute 80% of that, I think that goes a long way. I think that the design is a good design. It's the entrance to Red Bank, which right now is plagued by 2 other sites immediately in juxtaposition to the site that have been abandoned and will continue, in all likelihood, to be abandoned for a long period of time. This sends a message to people coming into Red Bank about Red Bank Street. But I think that the best message is for those of us in our low and moderate income community, that they have the same advantages that the Supreme Court says they're entitled to. And we're not afraid to do it. So I thank you for show your confidence. My reservation is that if this matter is not appealed, it should move aggressively, it should move quickly, because the last thing we want to see do is the same thing that's happened on the other 2 corners. You are in a position that we can't do much about that. We're trying.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Motion to adjourn?
No, I would like to have a moment just to talk about litigation.
Okay, if you use the microphone.
Don't hold the more? Okay, am I on?
Yes,
Am I on? Okay.
We're gonna move into executive session.
Yeah, but, you know, we don't really have to do all of it.
No, we still have to do a motion to adjourn to executive session.
No, I don't know if we have to do it in executive session.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just an update that the scheduling has been done for the brief, so that the link.
This is regarding the application of the old Exxon station for the Hampton Inn. That's what this is about, the litigation associated with that site.
Papers filed, the evidence is filed, they have a pre-trial conference, and the matter is, they have to do their brief by the end of this month. We have to begin with February. Just a mention. And it is being, it is being heard by Jeremy Court.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
You know, thanks a lot for selling us down the bridge. You know, there's no spine whatsoever. I can't believe it.
Second.
I'm gonna remember you.
All in favor?